Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Roast My Replay. Haven't had a chance to do one of these in a while and ran into a new player, or new 1v1 player perhaps, in the name of Luke over here. So he was kind enough to send us in this replay of a 1v1 match he played against none other than Pro Lapaka here on Comet Catcher. So pretty standard map, really solid opponent to learn the game from and take your licks, so to speak. If you're new to 1v1s and want to get into the game, you kind of have to get beat up in the ring. Some by some of the more seasoned veteran players. It's kind of the fortunate, unfortunate part of the game. Just take it with a grain of salt, and you learn the game more quickly this way. So, that being said, welcome, Luke. We are certainly not going to take it easy on you. That's no way to learn. Paka is playing along here. Nice to see that. And yeah, so one thing I noticed early on, I can pause the replay and just spend a minute talking about this, is your starting position. It's not that this is bad by any means. I actually kind of like how this is nestled in the corner, and you have the topography playing to the defense here. So most players open vehicles, so you're really buttoning down this bottom left corner. The unfortunate part about this is a couple of different things, I guess, and we've covered this on the channel before in some of my very early replays, is like your distance spreading out is farther away. As, say, if we compare your spawning position in the bottom left as to, say, starting here, or more specifically these two mexes right here, these three, you have a very short distance between all of these locations expanding in either direction. So, or I should say they're all equal distance. So you can expand to the farthest reaches of the map, as opposed to, say, if you look at your base here, to get all the way to the top left is like this huge distance here. So kind of the immediate disadvantage. Also, we can take a look at your distance towards the middle of the map. Is a little bit longer than, say, if you were spawning here. So some things to consider: extra expanding distance, expansion distance between, like, top and bottom or left and right, making sure that's all equal distance. You could have the argument that, of course, like, there's viable spawning locations everywhere on this map. It's just like which one is, like, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. So as long as you understand those, and like this is what you want to go for, like super defensive style here in the bottom left corner. Whereas our opponent, take a look. Just doing this pretty standard spawning location here, 2 mechs, and a lot of players will make the LLT there or walk to the 3rd mechs and continue this factory. It looks like Lapaka is doing something a little different here and going to solar collectors before factory. You're doing the same thing. I really like this style, nothing wrong with it. Yeah, and going for bots on this lab is a little, I would call it non-standard. Most players play vehicles on this map for very good reasons, not least of which the Blitz is very strong, the Incisor, so you have access to these light tanks that are great at harassing and, of course, standing and fighting, and frankly very good against bots. Kind of makes it easier on yourself. But yeah, we're opening up bots here, and I didn't quite exactly see what's coming out of your factory. I think that's actually a setting I can change and see how you queued those things up, or perhaps it's a widget. Anyways, there's a couple things wrong here I'll just point out immediately. So, and before I do, I'll just compare your open to Lapaka's. So he already has a solar collector going, his 3rd solar, which you'll see players start right after the factory finishes. That has a very good reason. It's like this factory has some delay on the actual starting your first unit, so you can have like a wind turbine or even a solar collector well underway before the first unit starts being produced on your factory. And compare this to your opens. So you already have this LLT finished, which is not good compared to, say, going construction bot first, right? So construction bot first is a lot better for this, like in a number of ways. We can think about, like, what is the LLT for, or more or less like how much better it is to spend your starting mass on extra build power here. So, like, you still have 227. Let me make sure this is right. Go to player view. 227 mass in the bank. Our opponent has a little bit more, and that's probably a function of, like, your LLT is finished, so you've spent that, and of course I think you have one of those ticks already constructed. Yeah, so those aren't like you know, free. And how much mass is that? Do I have to click off of this? 17 mass, not the biggest deal. Anyways, the point is there's such a huge rush distance between both bases, right? You both went second factory after 2 solars, so equal builds. You have this much rush distance between you, and by the time, like, say if you went construction bot first, it's already going to be finished, and you can start making your own ticks, as opposed to if you went tick construction bot. Well, like, yeah, your ticks are spending all this time getting across the map while your opponent already has a construction bot out that's using that starting mass. And that's maybe letting you expand with your commander out on the map. Maybe you're expanding with that construction bot. So, and then another kind of takeaway is like why this super early LLT isn't good, unless you're walking away from your factory, is it's like you only want to be doing this in certain situations, right? It's like your commander is standing right next to your factory. So like the area this LLT is covering is the same area your commander is. There's a lot of redundancy here super early in the game. It's just really not necessary. You could do like, say, what is a case where this really early LLT might be necessary? Well, you have a lot of players open. They'll go, maybe I can draw it on here without typing. That'd be great. Mechs, solar collector, LLT in this nice little arrangement. Got great cover of that with the radius of the LT, and then you do this little commander walk. Obviously not an arc, you do a straight line. Sorry, I have to say that. Mechs, solar collector, factory, right? Very standard, open, very safe. Nothing bad's gonna happen super early on, right? So big takeaway is just get the construction bot out. And there's only in rare certain situations, but as like a new player, like a macro style, you just want to spend the starting mass as quickly as possible, and you're not going to be doing that with your commander, right? You could be making a solar collector with your commander, and a construction bot could be assisting the factory, and you'd have a really nice balance of energy to like burning through the starting mass. Like once again, we'll circle back on the Paka. For some reason, isn't completing this solar collector. I have no idea why he would choose to do that. Perhaps it's a misclick, but yeah, I would have finished that, especially playing bots. Like, you need extra solar as a bot player. So many reasons why. He's playing super greedy though, but this isn't about him. And I see you have some ticks moving across the map, and this is just good because Lopaka's playing super greedy against you and doesn't expect 5 ticks to show up 2 minutes into the game. So, see, what are we doing? Not assisting the factory. We've burned through our starting mass and trying to get an additional construction bot out, and I see you have 10 pawns after that. So I kind of like scaling these units together. I mean, the answer is always it depends, and it's like, well, if you're a new player and you're trying to play, like, you're trying to learn this macro style where you're just not dying to because you don't have units, you don't have like 2,000 metal in the bank, right? There's definitely this macro style. So without moving past 2 minutes and 25 seconds into this game, it's the name of the game on Comet Catcher is to get all these mixes, and it turns out to be a lot of mass per second, and you need to be able to, 1, take these mixes, and then 2, spend the money. So, and that includes scaling your build power and E simultaneously. So at some, like, it sucks because you just have to say like, oh, develop an intuition to all this, but there's no like, oh, you do this at this time with this amount of stuff, right? It's always, the answer is always it depends. What's crazy is you're getting so much damage with these ticks, so kudos to you. Really cool to see that, but hey, and if it works, it works. But I would lean more towards like opening construction bot first and like no LLT. It's like you're standing right next to your factory. Why do you need this? So, and that leads us to like the next point. Okay, ticks got cleaned up. He did a lot of damage, frankly. So, really strong play. And we're expanding with our commander finally. We have 1 construction bot assisting the factory. Really cool to see. I could be really nitpicky here and talk about like this turret placement could probably be better, but it's not a big deal. Statistics so far are pretty even. I really like seeing this, just adding on the solar collectors with your commander as he's expanding. This is cool to see. Really good use of that build power that commander has as you're walking and expanding. Some pawns versus ticks, which is not the cleanest thing to micro against. As the pawn player, you can definitely get overwhelmed in this position. And what is your goals here? So we're expanding with 2 construction bot and your commander in either direction. We're kind of neglecting expanding directly towards the middle of the board, which for a lot of reasons this space here has a lot of strategic value to control. I can kind of talk about that recently. Something I learned is to say if like we start in this position and we kind of expand like this, making LLTs along the way with our commander, say, and it's like you're splitting the map down this diagonal here and you get all this expansion for free, right? Well, let's compare that to, say, something like what we're doing here. Expanding here with our commander, and we're expanding here with our construction bot. Maybe, I mean, you might go left or right, but for sake of the conversation, we'll just say you've chosen these 2 directions. And you can see like how much of a spread there is between where you might be keeping army. And I can maybe explain that a little better. It's like, say your opponent moves here with his entire force and is threatening either one of these locations simultaneously, right? Well, he can easily just juke you to one side and then split off troops and just like totally crush this. And like the inverse is true, right? He can juke this way, bring you up, bring your army up and over. You even have to run in front of this, which might be a bad move because he can like sandwich you between this crater. You can't retreat and kite. So he's gonna have a lot of initiative options expanding this style. That is like, it's not going to be a comfortable position against a competent player who can really pressure you. So maybe I'm wrong. You could say, oh, I have perfect radar and unit movement. That's never going to happen. Well, I really struggle with that, so I'm just kind of talking from my experience. And it looks like Ibaka brought his commander back, is even making an LT. I hate this. Your entire army commander standing right there. Make some solars. This is cool to see. A lot of players do this. These like 2 mexes specifically, like just putting an LLT there in a solar collector. This is a good unit position, good spot. I like this radar you're making here. Continuing to expand, we ended up getting a 3rd construction bot in the middle. And like, I suppose the same problem applies. Like now you're expanding in this direction, right? Which is like all this surface area, so to speak. So once again, your opponent can move his army and potentially get some initiative off of you, instead of like, say if you were just expanding like this, right? It's like, well, you just defend this small area here with a couple of LLTs and then keep your army here. And like, as you expand this way, you can easily respond to any attack coming from here. And you might end up doing that, but I mean, let's see how this game plays out. I'm not really sure how you ended up there with your commander. That was a little awkward. I didn't quite catch that, but you were like moving this direction and then double back to make that LLT. You end up having to remake a mex over here that you already moved to. This is frustrating. This happens to everyone losing mexes to ticks. I don't really care too much about that. It's huge catch. How did you find that perfect play? Even maybe losing this construction bot to a tick. Yeah, nice little citizen's arrest there. Pretty cool moves, man. Definitely have a lot of the basic skills required to be really strong in this game, so not sure how long you've been playing for. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit here. See what we're making. Yeah, okay, here we are. So like I said, we're on Comet Catcher and you have tons of mass, and the real trick is spending it. So you've outproduced your opponent on mass, but if the dirty little secret is if we go into your player view, you have 1600 mass in the bank, right? So you're essentially losing. What is Lapaka? He's floating 800 and you did a nice harass at the start, so I don't blame him too hard for having 800, 900 mass in the bank. He could probably have done a better job of spending that, but let's harp on you. you can spend 1600 mass. I know you can do it. We're 7 minutes into the game. Load into a custom game versus an inactive AI. Try and get yourself in the same exact position, and then like work your way back from there. It's like a lot of times with like bots, the limiting resource is typically energy. You're trying to fix that right now, going advanced solar, and are stalling 50% on energy. So that's not the solution. You need to have construction bots adding on solars earlier in the game, or be more aggressive adding on solars with your commander. So you can keep your commander in the main base and like fix a lot of your income problems. I would recommend checking out, I think I have like a Teddy open on this map, a bot open. So if you want to look at, say, like Teddy, Randy, I've covered these guys and a few others on this map specifically, doing both bot and vehicle open. So if you're interested in maybe checking those out and seeing like how these really top level players are approaching the map, you can like you can always reach out, ask them questions, but really just think about why they're doing certain moves, or how they're getting into their positions on the game. So hopefully this helps. Thanks for sending it to me, and I'd welcome y'all to send me any replays of your own. And if you like these kinds of replay analysis, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and send me a replay of your own. So that being said, thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next cast.